Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. We appreciate you. We're live here on TMI on ITV this great Thursday morning. We're looking at the 30-year plan being advanced by Edo State government. I'm joined by two gentlemen to help us make sense of this conversation this morning. I'd like to first introduce Efe Igbinosa, who is a member of the PDP, and then one of the media aides to Governor Godwin Obaseki. Efe, thank you for taking out time to join us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to also introduce Ahmed Mahmoudou, a member of the APC, who is joining us all the way live via Zoom as well from Houston, Texas this morning. Thank you, Ahmed, for making the time. I know the time difference. You should be in bed by now, ordinarily.
Yes, I should be. Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
We appreciate it. So, gentlemen, welcome to the program. If I'd like to begin with you for obvious reasons. One of those reasons being that, for want of better words, you are an insider as against somebody like Ahmed, for instance. So, I want you to give us an oversight, if you like, a summary of how much we have recorded so far in terms of development and growth in Edo State, and then we use that as a basis to launch the conversation around the 30-year plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me quickly start by saying that we have recorded a lot of achievements in Edo State so far under the administration of Governor Obaseki, and that is the major reason why we decided to launch the Edo State 30-year plan. For instance, if you look at the civil service reform that the government has embarked upon, you will notice that we now have a very good structure in place, because if you don't have a good structure for people to work, then your work will be encumbered by so many things. Good structure in place helps to improve workplace convenience and workplace comfort. That is very, very, very important. And the first thing that the governor did was to put a very magnificent structure in place that is attractive and that can compete with private sector structure. And the reality is, the structure that the government has put in place as a new secretariat, I'm not sure any civil service secretariat in this country can boast of that at the moment, because it's complete with all the facilities, including having a treasury house there and a crèche for civil servants with children who will have to, before now, run to the crèche to drop their babies, then come back to work. So they don't have to do that anymore. What you just need to do is to come along with your baby, go downstairs, drop the baby in the crèche, and go to your work. So the first thing is to give that comfort to civil servants, because they deserve that comfort. And then he started the reforms, the institutional reforms in the civil service, whereby you don't need to know anyone to be hired into the civil service. I challenge you, if you look at the last civil service recruitment that just finished, there was no employment was aided by anybody, none whatsoever. I recall entering a training where a particular training session of the civil or the new recruits, and I asked this question, the hub was fit to capacity, and I asked this question, is there anyone here whose recruitment was influenced by anyone? And nobody could raise up his or her hand, because that is the first place that you must start with. The opportunities available to the rich must be equally available to the middle class and to the poor. Otherwise, we cannot build an egalitarian society. So that was the second thing the governor did, and institutionalized that. And he did it in such a way that people, if you look at the new recruits there, and you are a journalist, you can go and investigate. You see how young they are. You see how fresh they are. Because they won't realize that the civil service is aging. And if we have an aging civil service and we want to build a 21st century economy, it cannot work. Because civil service is the engine of government. Before now, what other governors do is to try to eliminate the civil service, to try to take power away from them. But the government has given civil service back the power, because the truth is that civil service is the engine of government, and we need to retool it in order for it to serve us and work us better. So the civil service, as you well know, in the state has completely been repositioned, So then, okay, let's also move now to education. basic education. Edo Best has been a success story, as we know. In fact, the success story has attracted Finland, has attracted Rwanda, has attracted Sweden. These are places that are known. Finland and Sweden are places that are known known as the hallmark of education. These are countries that have some of the best models of education. So they've been here. States like Lagos have been here. Ekiti have been here. Kwara, they have been here. Now Kwara now have Edo Best, Kwara Best, Ekiti now have Ekiti Best, because of the foundational success that we had at the basic education. Because Governor Baseki believes that if we can get the foundation of education right, every other thing will fall in place. And it's the truth to fall in place. There's a famous quote from him where he said that if he has 100 naira, 40 naira will go into basic education. And that is the truth. We all know that if you do not have a solid foundation in your education, you cannot amount to anything in life. Every other thing that you'll be doing will just be trying to you're just trying to make up for the lost time, and we don't want our children to make up for the lost time. So we have to deal with the foundation and ensure that they have a solid base to drive education, and they can compete anywhere in the world. That is what we have done in education.
Yes, I'm going to talk to you more about business-specific issues, and then, of course, that will also cover areas like tech, for example. Personally, I have an idea as to the passion and the drive that the governor has when it comes to tech, again, especially as it touches our young people. But I want to talk to Ahmed quickly. Ahmed, they say results don't lie. You heard of it a while ago. He talked about some specific things that this government, under the leadership of Governor Godwin Obaseki, has accomplished so far. What would be your dispassionate, candid assessment?
Well, if it wasn't so tragic for the people of Edo State, I would be laughing at the things my brother Ife is talking about. Because it's clear, it is clear to anybody that has eyes that Godwin Obaseki's administration is probably the worst performing administration Edo State has had to saddle itself with in the last 100 years. He was talking about Edo Best. Is that a joke? You are talking about Finland. We are talking about people in Edo who don't even have things as simple as basic science teachers, not to talk about maths or English. You are talking about the structure of civil service, the building. What has the building got to do with service delivery? Are you aware, my brother, that policymakers, that's public servants, and civil servants work hand in hand? As we are speaking to you, the third tier of government is absent in Edo State. There is no local government in Edo State. We are talking about a non-functional local government level, and you are talking about 30-year plan. We are not even talking about the next 3 years, waiting to see the back of Obaseki so that other people can start to really build Edo State. I don't know. What is a 30-year plan? 30 year, is it a 30-year development plan? Economic development? Is it a policy development? What sort of development? Look, let me ask you a simple question, Ife. When Godwin Obaseki's administration ends in 3 years, name one legacy project. I didn't say two. One legacy project that people can wake up tomorrow and go and identify and say this is Obaseki's project. It does not exist. You are talking about a development plan. How do you have a development plan when you have a non-functional House of Assembly? A House of Assembly that is supposed to have 24 members, Obaseki went and shamelessly presented a budget of 10 members. Do you know that there are 8 principal members in every House of Assembly? So if you remove 8 from 10, that means there are only 2 non-principal members in Edo State House of Assembly. What sort of sick joke is that? And you're talking about development. Who is going to make sure that all these parameters of development are met and is evenly spread among all the 24 local government, all the local governments in Edo State? Who is going to supersede and make sure that all these things are done and then the people's interests are taken up? Look, to even make more of a joke of your so-called 30-year development plan, was there any element of the budget that is going to take care of elections in the third tier of government, in the local government for this year, for the upcoming year? No. Obaseki did not even make that provision. And you're talking about a 30-year development plan. Who is going to make it? Is it built in the air? The structure of Edo State, socio-politically, economically, and governmentally has been totally eroded by this administration. So it's only a joker that will come out and talk about a 30-year development plan. Development on the back of what? What are you developing on the back of? Every pliable, every workable industry that Obaseki inherited, he has driven it into the ground. The only other day I was reading in the news and my people were informing me that they were building, they were reconstructing street lights in Central, in Ring Road and all the other environs. Is that something to be celebrated? When he came in, there were no street lights there. So look, my brother, even if we don't have the shame or the worry for ourselves, let's have the worry for our children. Anybody that is buying into a so-called 30-year development plan is not just, it's not even, it's a morbid joke. It's a morbid joke. And everybody is laughing.
So, Ahmed, I'm going to allow you to step on your brakes for a second, so if you can react to some of these issues quickly. If, like I said a while ago, you have an insider knowledge of some of these things. We're going to have to push a bit of some more facts around this. I mean, he raised a very salient issue around the components associated with this 30-year plan. He talked about, for instance, the 2022 budget going forward. How much of this plan does it cover, for instance?
Let me quickly reply.
By all means.
I can excuse his ignorance because it's not fabulous, so they wouldn't know much of the things that we have done here, and that one is excusable. But the reality is, when you talk about the fact that structure doesn't matter, it's my imagination. Why would anybody say that? You all know an environment where the structure is emphasized, because structure has a lot to do with optimal performance. If you don't have a good work function very well. So that's the first thing for anybody to put in place. We don't just have only one of the best structures in Edo State, but in Nigeria, in the civil service. So you cannot want to attract young people into the civil service, and you don't want the place to be attractive as a private sector. You can't do that in this 21st century. You have to make it even more attractive than the private sector. That is important. And we didn't just only stop there. We then made a civil service e-governance compliance, then e-procurement compliance. The institution that has gone on in the civil service is something that you can't talk about within this time frame. It is a lot. And again, he talked about the fact that we don't have science students, science teachers in Edo Best. Look, again, that's another ignorance. Edo Best is Edo Basic Transformation Sector. It is at the basic level, the primary school level. And there is no primary school that you go to today that you will not have adequate teachers in all our primary school. Because what the governor has done in the last 4 years is to concentrate on the basic education sector, which is the primary school. We have supplied over 14 million examination and correctional materials to the school. More than 300 schools have been renovated. More than 100 and something schools have been rebuilt completely. Learning and correctional materials have been supplied. Furnitures have been supplied. This is all in a bid to make learning more convenient for the children and attractive. So he asked me about the legacy. I should name one legacy project of the governor, and I can't find one. It's not true. There are so many. Edo Best is a legacy project of this government. Osiomo Power Plant is a legacy project of this government. Edo Innovate is a legacy project of this government. It is a public-private initiative.
No, sir.
It is a public-private initiative.
I am happy that
let me ask you this question, sir. You live in Houston. Sorry, this is my time. Sorry, sir, this is my time. You live in Houston, and I want to ask you, how do government create jobs in Houston? Do they go and start building plants? Do they go and start building industry? No, they create an enabling environment for private sector to thrive. They create partnership, they create an enabling environment, then they go and seek partnership. You saw when the governor went to China to sign a partnership with Osiomo. And here it is. Edo Innovate is a legacy project of this government. The Modular Refinery, another public-private partnership, is a legacy project of this government. The civil service reforms is a legacy project of this government. So we have so many legacy projects that we can't even begin to mention. Then he talked about that should we celebrate the street light, that he bent the street light before, and now the street light does not work again. Good, but let me explain to you so that you can see how this government works, you can see how his mind works. He does not think like the average politician. You and I know that the average politician before now would have since started to put street lights everywhere. But he has leaves the street light will die. Let me tell you something. Did you know how much that was used to power the street light that he met? Millions of naira that cannot be sustained was used to power the street lights. How many street lights? And in what areas were they? So the reasonable thing to do, first of all, was to shut it down and come up with a sustainable model, not sustainable model that will last only just during this period, that will leave his administration. Then what did he do? He said, okay, now since we have willing buyer, willing selling agreement with Osiemo, we have bought 10 megawatts out of Osiemo's 55 megawatts. Why do we need to start using diesel and fuel, pay millions to power the street light? That are not even in how many areas are they? So let us wait for Osiemo. Let us finish our partnership with Osiemo. Then we will now have sustainable street lights that will outlive him. What the governor had done in partnership with Osiemo to bring the street light to Edo State will not only outlive his administration, no administration would ever have to deal with street lights again. Because what has been the perennial problem of street lights is power, nothing else. Lucky Benedion has come and he started street lights. What affected it? Power. The Osumbo came, he started street lights. What affected it? Power. Oshomole came, he started his own street light. What affected it? Power. What of us came? And he said, no, we have to be something that is sustainable. It might take time. People might abuse me. They might say a lot of things. But by the time I'm done fixing the street lights, they are going to praise me. And the next administration after him, and after that, will never have to deal with street lights again. Now he has dealt with the street lights once and for all time in a sustainable manner. Did it take time? Yes. Did they achieve it? Yes. That is the goal. And it's very important for those people to know that this is how this man's mind works. It works in a sustainable manner. The project might take time, but they will be done in a sustainable way. Look at all the legacy projects that have been put in place. Look at the EDO Innovate. Look at the EDO Tech Park. Look at all of them. There is nobody who has been to the EDO Innovate that cannot say, "Oh, this is Silicon Valley making." So,
why we want to enjoy, I mean, just relish the moments around all of these legacies, these legacy projects that you talked about. Yes. Ahmed raised an issue around funding the 30-year plan. All right, let's begin with the 2022 budget, for example. Yes, how much of that chunk covers whatever part of his plan?
Before we roll over into the question, because he has not even addressed.
I want him to react quickly. Efe, would you kindly react to the issue of funding, because we are basically looking at implementation and impact of this 30-year plan. Of course, it will be a no-brainer to say that you can't talk about implementation without having the requisite resources to pursue it. Efe, are you still there?
No. Yes, I'm still with you. Can I respond?
By all means, go ahead.
Okay, look, I don't think funding will be much of a problem to this 30-year plan, because it's not a plan that you want to achieve the 30 years in just 1 year. It's a plan that has been broken down into short, medium, and long term. So for the short term, short-term plans will be put in place. And as we speak with you now, partnerships have been opened up with companies, private companies. We are going to have estates being built. Do you think those estates will be built by government alone? No, government is going to create an enabling environment to build new estates, new areas to open up. Do you think it's government money that we use to open up this area? No, this government doesn't work that way. This government does not rely on government resources. This government relies on creating an enabling environment, making the ease of doing business seamless to attract public-private partnership into the state. So I can assure you, and the governor has said this repeatedly in our meetings, we are not going to have a problem with funding as long as we make sure that we can create an enabling environment and we continue to improve on our ease of doing business. Partnership will come, real estate developers will come, people who want to build companies will come, there will be tax rebates. So, and when you do all of this, you naturally attract investors to your state. So it is a plan. It is not something that will happen in a day or in a year. It is a plan that will happen in 30 years. But it is a plan that has short, that has medium, and that has long term. So, and the truth is, nobody in his right sense will argue with a plan like this. Because even in your home, as a family man, if there's no way you can live in a house for the day, there is no way you can live a year without planning for the year. But we are all living in this state without planning. That is the truth. And we want to see magic, we want to see development everywhere. It is not possible. The last plan that we ever had was during the period of Dr. Samuel Okpemudia, at the time governor of Midwestern State and later Benue State, in 1975. And the plan was supposed to terminate in 2005. The plan failed completely. The plan did not see the light of the day. So and in doing this, we have thought, okay, why did this plan fail? And how do we go about making sure that this plan doesn't fail? And the government has also put that framework in place to ensure that there's sustainability and this plan doesn't fail. So imagine the setback we've had over the years. We have lived in this state with that plan. And you are wondering why we are where we are. We are where we are because we have failed to plan. Now this is the time to plan. So for someone to say, or for anybody to suggest that, oh, we shouldn't plan because we are at this level, it just shows the person's level of ignorance or intelligence.
So let me turn to Ahmed quickly. So Ahmed, you are basically in the US, at least at this point. I mean, you live in a country where planning is an integral part of the whole system, the whole governance structure. Why would you have a problem with a 30-year plan when in the US, for example, you have 50-year plan, you have 100-year plans?
Fantastic question.
I don't have a problem with planning. I have a problem with no, you are mixing it up. If I allowed you to talk, allow me to talk. You should remember, first of all, that you are a public servant. You are paid with the taxes of Edo people. So for you to come out and say people don't have sense or intelligence, that's belittling not only on yourself, but whoever gave you an office. You need to restructure.
Gentlemen, can we be decent with our narrative on the show, please? By all means, let's
correct that and move on. Now, to the issue of planning. You don't plan in the sky. The fundamental of planning is budgetary planning. Where is the budgetary planning for 3-year plan? Number one. Number two, let me ask you direct questions because you are just talking. Look, we handed over the problem that is Obaseki to PDP. It's not you that will tell us about Obaseki. It's us that will tell you about Obaseki. The problem we had with him...
Ahmed, hold on a second. Can we make this more of the issue than the person, please?
Focus on the issue.
Yes.
Just hold on. You allowed him to talk. Allow me to talk. Now, when you go and you are addressing power plants, and you're talking of Osiomo, Obaseki inherited Azura power plant. What is the state of Azura power plant? That was mostly owned by Edo State government. Osiomo power plant is not mostly owned by Edo State government. Edo State government is purchasing power from Osiomo. So when you are talking about planning and you have sold Azura, sold your ownership to rent a house, then you are not even beginning to make any sense. Let's put that one aside. We are talking about a technology hub. That is a reconstructed warehouse at best. I'm sure you don't know what a technology hub is. If not, you will not stand and be talking about a reconfigured warehouse and calling it a technology hub. If you want to see where development is taking place, go to Borno State and go and look at what the Borno State governor is doing in a war zone. That is what development is. And when we are talking about, you see, the thing about having to make up stories as you go along with a government that is already failed is that you don't even understand the concepts that you are trying to sell. What is known as a legacy project is inception, initiation, budgeting, and finalizing. The buildings that you are boasting about are refurbished buildings that are secretariat buildings. There is no greenfield project in that area. Only maybe one of them is a greenfield out of 6 buildings. So you cannot even be, I think you don't even, maybe you need to open the dictionary there and find out what a legacy project is. A legacy project is you design, implement, and then you hand it over. And then when people come back, they say, this is what has been done by this administration. So let us be clear on what we are talking about. Now you talk about Edo Best. It's easy to deceive people if they don't know the facts of the matter. When we had COVID-19, the handlers of the government foolishly went out and were talking about a hub system. Please, where is the hub? Where is the internet hub that Edo Best is based on? Where all those tablets, the 300,000 tablets that you say you bought, where are they connected to? Which service do they use to give internet service to the hinterland and so on and so forth? They said they bought smart tablets. What is the service that they are connected to? Don't come out and say things that you are not even clear about. So if you are talking about modern education and you don't have basic internet infrastructure, what are you talking about? Look, the simple understanding of a 30-year development plan is you will budget, you will have the input of the people of the states, their legislative representatives, their traditional rulers, and they will come. Obaseki cannot come and tell Edo people what he plans to do for the next 2 years. You are talking about 30 years. In less than 3 years, his administration will be winding down. He has not even funded local government election. You are talking about funding 30 years. 30 years what? We understand the concept of planning. We are not talking about beginning, middle, and end. What are the components of that 30-year plan that make it foolproof? Who are the guardians of that project? What is the policy that is holding it together? And what will ensure that it outlives this administration? He has had to run away because there's nothing more to say. So this is the fact. If you come out...
No, we can't be sure ran away. There could have been a network glitch or something in between.
He ran away. What is he having a network? Is it not the same glitch that they are using to do Edo Best? He should use the one they are using for Edo Best to connect so that he can talk to people of Edo State. The days of bamboozling people are over. We want to understand the fundamentals. What is the 30-year development plan? What's the safeguard that is put in place that another administration will not come and change it? Where is the funding coming from? Who are the principal actors in that policy? These are the things that you need to come out and give flesh to. Don't come out and be telling people all sorts of funny stories that have no basis in reality. You have a converted warehouse, calling it an infrastructure.
But hold on for a second. Is it also possible that this plan is still in its evolutionary stage, and as such, the government is still reaching out to critical stakeholders to bring it to perfection and fruition?
No, perhaps you have not been following what has been said. That development plan, the committee was set up, if memory serves me well, about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
They are supposed to have gone out. They should have issued a public memorandum inviting input from members of the public and their representatives to come and debate on what forms the core objectives of a 30-year development plan. Where are we focusing on? Are we focusing on agriculture? Are we focusing on sports? Are we focusing on education? Where are we focusing on? And how do all these things tie together? The Edo North Senatorial District has talents that are different from Edo South and Edo Central. How do we bring these things together? Edo State is not homogeneous in the nature of its composition. So we need to talk to each other, not talk at each other. You cannot stay in Benin and say you are making a development plan that doesn't take into consideration the peculiarities of Edo North or Edo Central, for example, who spoke on their behalf and told you this is what we want to develop. So we need to have, if you are talking robustly, you made the example of America. Here we had, for example...
It's time for you to bring me in.
No, I'll bring you in a minute. I'm glad you're back, by the way. I understand we had a network problem there for a second.
He should have used the one for Edo Best to connect. I'm sure it's more reliable than the one they are using there. So that's what we're talking about. In a 30-year plan, give us the fundamentals of the plan. What are the safeguards? Where is the funding coming from? Where is it directed at? What is the core principle of that 30-year development plan? What ensures that another administration is not going to overturn it?
Okay.
And how are the interests of Edo people taken care of?
We need to start winding down, our gentlemen. We have a few minutes to go on this discussion. But quickly, Efia, I want you to talk to us about safeguards. I mean, those were the words that Ahmed used just a while ago. Safeguards within the context of realizing that we live in a country where there's hardly continuation in governance. One government comes, overrides virtually everything that had already been done by the previous government. 30 years, at least, given the peculiarity of our environment, is a long period. What are some level of guarantees that we have that at least the better part of this plan will come to fruition? Because Governor Obaseki, constitutionally speaking, has 3 years in office at best, all right? So what happens in the next 10, 15, 20 years, for example, when there's policy somersaults, when there are, as we call it, acts of God, for example, all of those very fundamentals that could alter very drastically a plan such as this one?
Okay, thank you very much. But before I answer that, let me just quickly respond to some of the things that you raised. You talked about Azura power plant, and that the governor has abandoned Azura power plant and moved to Osemo power plant. Again, it shows that he's ignorant about what he's talking about. Azura power plant was not used by the governor of Governor Obaseki. Azura power plant was used by Oshomole. And why did Azura power plant fail? Azura power plant was built and plugged into the national grid. And once you plug into the national grid, you cannot consume it locally alone. It will be consumed nationally. And that is how Azura power plant failed. And that is why Governor Obaseki decided to do Osemo power plant.
That is a blatant lie.
The people who have benefit directly.
Ahmed, can we allow the gentleman have his day, please? Ahmed, can we allow him enjoy his time, please?
I will not allow that.
Please. It has to be one person talking at a time. Please allow if you respond to the issues that you raised. Ahmed, please allow Efe respond to these issues that you have raised. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, can you mute this man?
Efe, by all means, go ahead. Go ahead.
He said that he said that we should rather look at Borno State that is a war-torn state, but he never mentioned any project in Borno. He called the war-torn state, and he never mentioned any projects. No project that we should look towards to.
Google is your friend.
So now let us get into the
age of
question
information.
I asked.
Google is your friend.
Governor Obaseki, when you are talking to people on TV, you have to give examples. You don't tell them to go and Google. Governor Obaseki is prepared to entrench a culture of planning in the state. And I know your question is also a question that has agitated the minds of stakeholders. Another way, many of those sons and daughters, they are concerned about the sustainability of the implementation of the plan. But the truth is that the government is so prepared to entrench a culture of planning in the state. And as such, he has decided that the 30-year plan will not only be a plan, but a legal document that will be legislated upon. And to do this, the government has already decided putting in place an agency that will be established by law to saddle with the responsibility of conceptualizing and implementing government development plan in a sustainable manner. So, and once this is done, subsequent leaders should be bound by law to continue the state development and physical plan. He is very determined and committed towards this, and that is why he's making this. He's going to make.
I have a feeling we're losing you there again, and we have the network, the intermittent network, to thank for that. We hope you're able to join us again before we wrap up in a minute. So Ahmed, let me turn to you quickly now, because we have to make the most of the small time that we have left, all right? Let's look at what the ideal situation should be, because for the most part of this conversation, you have criticized several aspects of this plan and the whole idea from the ground up. But what should be the best practice?
The best practice should have been at the beginning of this so-called 30-year development plan. All the participants, all the players will be invited to a village square, and they would tell you, in very unclear terms, these are the parameters for development in such and such. The parameters for development, my dear brother, in Edo South, the Edo South Senatorial District, are entirely different from the parameters of development in Edo North or Edo Central. So for you to say you have a 30-year development plan that is not even bought into by the people who you are supposedly planning for, is ab initio a failure. And you see, we are talking about building castles in the sky. When you want a development plan, the people will come and tell you what they are interested in developing. And that is how you can move forward when the people, the stakeholders, buy into it. Who are the stakeholders for this 30-year plan?
Yes, just hold on, Efe. You are going to wrap it up for us. You will wrap it up for us, and then you will express your thoughts.
So far, if he has told us that, I'm sure he's joking, that there is going to be a legislative legislative framework. When are you going to make a legislative framework, Efe? We are talking about an administration that is less than 2 years to its end.
You need to complete your plan.
Okay, the plan has not been completed. We are still working on the plan. In less than 3 years that you are going.
It's not going to suffice only for these 2 years.
So now you are using only this plan to.
So, Ahmed, I will trade with you. We are time constrained already. Can we give Efe 30 seconds to quickly wrap it up for us? Efe, kindly respond to these issues as we wrap up.
No, please, you have to give me more than 30 seconds.
But you start already. You start already.
So again, I think it's also important. Okay, I think it's also important to let everybody know that he's talking about who was part of the plan. We recently had a workshop on the overview of the Edo State Development and Physical Plan. This workshop was organized by the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, as well as the Budget and Economic Plan. And in this workshop, we have the estate developers, we have surveyors, we have students, we had town planners. They all came together to give input, to bring their input to the plan. So it's not something that we are just doing alone in Broken House. No.
What about the legislative representative?
It's still being worked upon. This plan will go to the locals. It will go to all the local governments. They will have their inputs as well before we can say we now have a robust plan. We are just working on it, and everybody's input will be captured.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid this is the much time we allow us take this morning. We have overstretched our time, but I sincerely wish we could continue with this conversation this morning. I want to appreciate the brilliance and the insights that you guys have brought in on the show this morning. Ahmed Mahmoudou, thank you for breaking your night, your sleep, to join us all the way live from Houston, Texas this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, Efe Benosa, thank you as well for coming to speak with us this morning. Hopefully you had breakfast before you joined, but we appreciate your time with us as well. Thank you. Okay, so this is what we're leaving it for the discussion this morning. We're back shortly after this break. Everyone, stay with us.